everybody. Hello. Welcome. Happy Monday. So this is kind of funny this morning. Lindsay always has the controls of our coffee chat. But Lindsay's living in time zone craziness right now. So I had to have the controls of everything. So if today's broadcast is a mess, it's because of me.
Yeah, it's really not that challenging, but it's one of those things when you don't do it often, it's just not even thinking about it. So if you have a question or a comment and it's not being answered, it's her fault. It's her fault.
It's because of me. It's because this is not usually my role, and now I'm very confused. But this morning we are talking about debunking the honeymoon phase. So this is something that I'm sure people are going to be like, what? What are you talking about? The honeymoon phase is real. No, it's not. So basically, what we wanted to come on today and talk about, because we see this all the time, is I'm beyond my honeymoon, and so I can't lose weight anymore. We see people saying this all the time, and it just isn't really true. So that is something that we just wanted to kind of go, oh, what's that? Ooh, whoa, that was weird.
Live viewer comments.
All right, hi, live viewer comments. So we see this all the time, though, that, once you're 12 months out of surgery, that you can't lose weight anymore and you've wasted your surgery and it's just all done. And it simply isn't true that you will lose weight easier. Which way am I going? Easier in that first 12 months. But there's a lot of reasons for that. But you can definitely still lose weight beyond that 12 months, beyond that 24 months. We have people that are 5 and 6 years out of surgery that are still losing weight. It works a little bit differently because you're not losing. The whole magic of bariatric surgery is not the restriction and making the stomach smaller. That's a small part of it. And that's how you lose weight in that first 12 months is by eating less. But how you lose weight beyond that honeymoon phase is actually a lot different. So, Lindsay, anything to add to this before I rant?
Yeah, so we're going to go into a bit of the science part of it and how that all works part of it. But the biggest piece that we see from a mindset part of it is the further out you get, and as that restriction starts releasing a little bit, and then you see it all the time. I'm getting back into old habits. I'm starting to eat more. How can I eat so much? Should I be only eating this much? And so a lot of that comes from here. So we are going to talk a lot about the science. We are going to talk about the food and all of that stuff. But we're also going to talk a little bit about the mindset piece of that, because as we all know, bariatric surgery is not the easy way out, quote unquote, like people think, but it also doesn't mean that you only have 12 months or 18 months, which is kind of where they say that honeymoon period is, to do what you need to do. So we see people all the time who are like, oh, I've hit that 18 months and I didn't lose, or I didn't hit my goal. Oh my gosh, I'm doomed. No, we're here to tell you that is not true. The great news is we have some amazing tips on that, as well as things that you can do right now, right today, to help you kind of get back on track with losing, whether you're 10 years out, 2 years out, 5 years out, it doesn't matter. So Christina, tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so a big part of bariatric surgery, of course, is that they do make your stomach smaller. Whether you have bypass or sleeve or whichever surgery you have, there is a shrinking of the stomach that happens. So yes, that is a real thing. But we know from lap band and the amount of failed cases of lap band that we know that just making the stomach smaller was not enough. That it just only gave us temporary results, and it really didn't work, because the thing is, our brains are smart and we learn how to eat around that restriction all the time. So anybody in this group, we all know how to eat around our restriction. And your restriction alone just isn't enough, that you can eat small amounts of junky food and not lose weight. So we know that alone was not enough. So that is kind of where sleeve and bypass came into play a lot more, was that just shrinking that stomach wasn't enough. So the big thing that happens with sleeve and bypass is you actually get a metabolic reset. So it actually resets your metabolism, and it gives you a fresh start, basically. So what happens when you're first out of surgery, you have this brand new, fresh metabolism that's revved to the nines, and it's just ready to go, raring to go all the time. So you're burning like crazy. And then what happens is, in that honeymoon phase, your metabolism is red hot. So you are burning really, really great. Now you can keep that metabolic burn going by eating small, frequent meals, which your sleeve is supposed, or your pouch is supposed to help you do by eating, not being able to consume a lot at one time. So you're eating small, frequent meals. That's one way to rev up that metabolism. By drinking lots of water, another thing that we hear about, by eating a high protein diet. It's like all of these things that you're supposed to be doing in that honeymoon phase, which Facebook's all backwards. Anyways, so you're supposed to be doing all of these things to rev up that metabolism. And all of those things that you're doing in that first 12 months really do help you to lose weight quickly and easily, which is the goal. But you can keep doing so many of those habits beyond that 12 months and then adding in new habits, because there's things that you cannot do in that first 12 months that you can do a little bit later. So for instance, having your calories at a healthy level is really hard to do in that first 6 to 12 months. That most of us are living in semi-starvation, which if you don't know anything about semi-starvation, go back to last week's coffee chat where we talked about semi-starvation. But most of us are living in semi-starvation for that first 6 to 12 months. There's just kind of no way around it when you're not able to eat a lot at one time. But as you come out of that 12 months, you're getting your body to a healthier calorie level. So that will help to rev up your metabolism all over again. You're able to start adding in a lot more exercise beyond that 6 to 12 months. So that's going to help to rev up your metabolism, getting in that HIIT cardio and getting in some weightlifting and getting in some exercise that you're probably not able to really push the limits of until you get your calories at that healthier level. So there's all kinds of things that you can continue doing further into your surgery journey that you couldn't do in the beginning, but it's all about that metabolic reset. So you have surgery and you're a brand new baby metabolism, which is wonderful, and you're burning really quickly and easily and everything's going well. And then things start to slow down a little bit, as they will as you age, because you think of any normal human, as you age, your metabolism does slow down a little bit. But you're 10 years out of surgery. You have a 10-year-old metabolism. Nobody in the world would tell a 10-year-old that they couldn't lose weight. That it's just, you know what? I'm sorry, Gemma's around 10, isn't she? Is she 9 or 10? Yeah, you would never say to Gemma, I'm sorry, Gemma, this is just, your journey's over. This is where you're going to be at. You're never going to build muscle. You're never going to be able to get more fit. You're never going to be able to do anything you want because you're 10 now. Like, you would just never say that to a 10-year-old. But we say that to our 2-year-old metabolisms. We say that to our 5-year-old metabolisms, and it's just simply not the way that it is.
Yeah, and I think too, one of the hard things that we find is that we say these things to ourselves over and over and over again, and we know that it means that we start to believe them, whether we want to or not, whether we know the science or not, whether we hear Christina and Lindsay say all the time, it's like whether you hear all that or not, we often say the meanest things to ourselves. You would never say it to your 10-year-old daughter or your best friend or your sister or your mother. Like, you wouldn't say those things. You wouldn't be mean. You wouldn't be like that. But the thing with what happens is you slide into old habits, which is, again, eating chips and, whatever it is. It's, not focusing on eating enough food throughout the day. So then you get hungry, which we talked a lot about last week. You have all of these things starting to happen. And then we sit there and we're like, I've tried everything. I can't do it. It's just my metabolism is done and I am not going to be able to do it. But we've seen it, right? 7 years out, 8 years out, 6 years out, we have seen people take what they thought was a complete and utter failed bariatric surgery and have made major changes to their weight by making small miniature changes to their everyday. And that's what we always say to you guys, right? It's not about changing everything. When you had your bariatric surgery, it was literally change everything, right? You might have been drinking pop and eating crap and having all of these things. And then they're like, okay, here's your pre-surgery diet. Oh, now you can't eat anything. And then your pooch might get mad at you. And oh, by the way, we're going to make you throw up when you have that. And all of these things are going to come into play as kind of the things that you are doing past your bariatric kind of 12 months. Then the body's like, okay, I'm feeling a little better. I don't need to, tell you about that. I don't need to, but that's when this part comes in so much more. And then we have all these things where we have to change everything again. No, we don't. You just have to look at what you're currently doing, which you'll hear us say this all the time. That assessment piece is key. We have tons of new members, by the way, welcome, hello. Tons of new members. And a lot of the challenges that they came into this group was that, bored eating, snacking, doing, not thinking about it, old habits, that kind of stuff. But what we always say to anybody that we start with on the very beginning, whether they join our group or not, is do a full assessment of what you're currently doing. Because we all think we're doing all these things terribly wrong all the time, but the truth is that's probably not the case. You're probably doing some things for sure, but there's ways to kind of focus on what those are and how to grow from that.
I would say that 90% of the one-on-one nutrition coaching clients that I work with tell me that they're eating too much. They're like, I'm definitely eating too much. And then we go ahead and we do a full assessment and see exactly what they're eating, and they're eating too little. 90% of the time, it is so often that this is what I see, that they're like, oh, I'm definitely eating too much. What I see more often than not is they are backloading their calories at the end of the day. So they're eating very little early in the day, like, as little as 300 calories before lunch. And then they're eating, say, I don't know, 800 calories from like afternoon snack, dinner, and bedtime. So it feels like you're eating way too much, because in that sort of like wind down part of the day, you're eating a lot when you're less active. And it's not just physically active, but mentally active. So even if you're not hugely physically active at this point, if you have a desk job, say, you still have a lot of mental activity that's going on in there. So it doesn't mean that you need to have all your calories, early in the day because you're physically active. You're like, well, I don't work out first thing in the morning, or maybe I don't work out at all. But that mental activity also really plays into this. So that is one thing that we see all the time, is that all or nothing. I'm failing at everything. I'm eating way too much. I'm eating all the wrong foods. And it's really not that most of the time. And usually, if you've done the work and revved up that metabolism in that honeymoon phase, then eating a little bit of the wrong foods or eating a little bit too much or whatever, that those things just have a minimal impact. And it's not so crazy. But if we haven't done the work to rev up that metabolism, that's where we need to start, is working on, and those are those little micro habits, that eating breakfast, eating every 2 to 3 hours, drinking more water, increasing your fiber, that there's, smaller things like that you need to be focusing on, not going back to a liquid diet. That's not going to solve any of the problems. Not worrying so much about what your calories and what your macros and like all of these numbers that drive people crazy. But these little micro habits are where you're going to really get the results in revving up that metabolism and getting those long-term sustainable results beyond the honeymoon period. Because there is no going back to the honeymoon. Unless you go under the knife again and have another surgery, there's no pressing reset on that metabolism again. You simply cannot do it in the same way that you did from surgery. So if you're trying to get back to that, right after surgery burn that you had, that right after surgery loss, you're never going to see those numbers again. Because you had that brand new fresh metabolism, you had that tiny little restriction, and you don't want to go back there. It's not healthy for your body to keep reliving in that zone all the time. If you stayed there forever, it's really not good for you. Again, go back to last week's coffee chat. But you can do things to rev up that metabolism to get it burning a little better, and then you can get back into that loss mode and get rid of the idea that your honeymoon is over, because it just isn't.
Yeah, and we hear all the time about the pooch resets and the 5-day, liquid resets, and they're like, oh, it's just really good for me to get like mentally back on track. The opposite is actually true, okay? So if you're like, I need to get back on track, I need to focus. Well, first of all, we have a real food reset. That's step one. Without a doubt, do not go on a liquid reset.
And it's free on our website.
Yeah, it's on the website. You can get it. But here's the thing. If you need that mental reset, going to a liquid diet is actually going to do the opposite, because you're going to do the liquid reset. Maybe you're successful. Probably not. Let's be honest. They're damn hard. So then you feel like crap because you didn't make it. Maybe you did make it, and then the first time you had real food, your weight went up again anyways, and then mentally you're back down in the dumps, right? So it doesn't actually do anything for your mindset, but muck around with it even more when we already struggle with different things that are going on with that. So when you're looking at ways to say, okay, I'm listening to you guys, I'm hearing what you're saying, Lindsay, Christina, you're making sense, I'm ready. Now what, right? And that's really the big thing that we always hear all the time. They're like, we hear you guys say all these great things, but now what's the next step for me? So Christina, somebody's watching us, they're ready to go, they're excited, they want to reset mentally, they want to reset physically, emotionally, food. What do they do now? What should be the very first thing?
Step one is you need to find a supportive community. Doing it by yourself hasn't worked. You didn't get to this point by having all the answers. That, if you're sitting here and you're struggling and things aren't going wonderfully for you, you probably don't have all the answers. You don't have all the resources, and accountability is so key. So jumping in the group, finding a buddy. Lindsay put a post out last week, I believe it was. Who needs a buddy? Who needs somebody to kind of help them and hold their hand in this journey? So getting there. Our toolkit actually offers a ton of this information. So we have a toolkit. It is on our website that you can jump in and buy it if you're interested. It's super inexpensive and it's a one-time purchase and it literally lasts you forever. So it has our reset in there. It has different meal plans for once you're done the reset. It has workouts in there to get started. It has all kinds of different mindset information, goal setting. Our assessment, accountability, and action plans are in there. It has so much information to take you from struggling and not sure what to do to having a better grasp on what to do and how to implement it beyond the honeymoon. That again, most of us had, sort of a toolkit that we were given by our surgeons-ish, sort of, maybe, when we first had surgery. But those same principles do not apply when you're 2 years out. That, going back to 600 calories a day, going back to having protein shakes, going back to all of these things, they just don't work the same way that they did when you were brand new out of surgery. So finding accountability, I think, is the absolute first thing that you need to do. You need to find a buddy, you need to find a partner, you need to find a group, you need to find somebody that can help you in this. And then the second piece is finding some of those tools for the people that are beyond the honeymoon, that throw away, burn them, whatever you need to do for those tools that you used right out of surgery, because they're just not going to work for you. It would be, I can't even think of a comparison, but it would be like if I tried to, learn to walk all over again. I wouldn't be able to do it the same way I did when I was a toddler. That it's just, everything is different, that the further along you get, it's just going to be different.
Yeah, a really good example, if you've ever tried to learn a language, is that. Because I'm trying to learn Spanish, and if it was as easy as being a baby and being talked to and being listening to, and then me just being like, I'm going to talk, I never thought of anything, right? You just did it. That's kind of what happens when, yes, you had thoughts to do it, but after the honeymoon, but after surgery, weight was coming off in that honeymoon phase. It wasn't as much planning or thinking or anything like that. Now, as an adult trying to learn a language, they're like, oh, you need to know what the adjective, verbiage, and I'm like, I don't know what that is in English. Like, because that's not how we learn how to speak English. So anyways, if you have a second language, again, I salute you. That's amazing if you're learning. But that's the thing with Beyond the Honeymoon. And it's interesting because we've had a ton of new members join us. Again, we're super excited to have them. But the first thing we hear from them is, I cannot believe you guys are talking about eating more, exercising less, doing these things. It's the first time I've ever heard this. And I've had surgery in 2012, or I had surgery in 2016. And it's not that it's unique. We have been doing this for 4 years. We are telling you can get results. But in the bariatric world, and let's be honest, in the health and wellness world as a whole, unless you're dealing with some really great professionals, it has been said over and over again to go really low calories. This is what you're going to do. There are bariatric communities out there where I just have to walk away because I'm just like, no, 600 calories is not okay. And you have all these people jumping in and be like, yeah, it's great. And no, it's not. And as the professionals, the experts here in this group, we're telling you, we have seen major success by listening to some of these things. We're not crazy, I promise you that. Trust in the process. If you turned around and said, these guys are insane, I've never heard this before, I had my surgery 7 years ago, I don't know if I believe them, reach out to some of our members who are where you're at right now, where they were, right? They are seeing the results, they're listening, they're taking the information in, and it's a process, right? It is a process to trust us in. It's like this idea of doing these things all together and getting the results that you want. We know it works. We've helped thousands of women to work it. We are not one who turn around and say, starve yourself, it's the best way, good job, let's go. No, we're telling you the truth. And sometimes it sucks because I've 800 calories my whole journey. But guess what?
And
you would be in a support group
if it was working.
If you were perfect. Yeah.
Well, and honestly, it's a lot of relearning. So you've been taught this, especially in, like Lindsay said, the diet world in general. But I know I had to unlearn a lot of the stuff from the diet world, because the diet world messes with your brain so bad. Because honestly, the diet world wants to keep us overweight. That is their goal. That because they don't make money when we get long-term sustainable results, because then we don't need them anymore. I know that my Jenny Craig lady has called me many times over the last 5 years and been like, can we get you back on plan? And I'm like, no, thanks, I'm great. I learned how to eat real food and how to just sustain, my journey, that has definitely worked for me. I get emails from Weight Watchers. I get emails from the Dr. Bernstein. I've done all of these diets, guys, and I still get the messages from them, still get the phone calls. Can we get you back? And I'm like, no, because I don't need your support anymore, because it didn't work. If it worked, I wouldn't have got to the point of needing bariatric surgery. So, and then the experts out there, the experts that are telling you to eat 600 calories a day, eating 800 calories a day, all of those things, I always say to my clients, turn around and ask them how many calories they're eating a day. That if your doctor, your dietitian, your surgeon, if they're telling you, you know what, Lindsay, you can't go above 1,000 calories a day, you're going to gain your weight back. Well, how many calories did you eat yesterday? Because I don't know what part of my bariatric surgery made me not a human, but I still have human needs. that I still have my same organs to run. I still have the same hair to grow. I still have all of these things to happen that are basic human needs. So what part of having bariatric surgery made me not be human anymore, that I now need less calories than the average human? So just because my tummy is smaller and I can physically consume less doesn't mean that my body needs less. And that's the biggest thing. And people are always like, oh. And if you do ever ask your dietitian or your nutritionist or your doctor how many calories they consume, they just look at you like, how dare you? Because they don't want to be called out on that, because it's so true that you are not less human. And then again, we've had clients that have said to their medical team, what part of this makes me not human anymore? Like, I don't understand. And they don't have an answer for you. So if there isn't an answer of why you need less calories, then I think you definitely need to consider is, if they can't answer your why, then is that really the right plan for you? So Lindsay and I are both very passionate about explaining the why. We're not sciencey people whatsoever, but we do our best with it. And we definitely figure out the science parts of it to give you the explanation of why your body needs less or more calories and why less is not a good thing. And then the proof is in the pudding, and it just, it doesn't work long term. We see so many clients that they're gaining weight at 800 calories. I have a new nutrition coaching client that I started working with last week, and she has been gaining about 2 to 3 pounds a month, eating 1,000 calories a day and working out for 30 to 60 minutes a day. So how is she gaining weight at that? Like, it boggles your mind, right? But it's because her body isn't fueling itself properly. And so it's holding on to every little thing that you give it. And what happens is, because we are not ironclad in our willpower, that, we eat 1,000 calories a day most of the time, but then we have one day where we jump up to 1,600 because we binge, and all of that 1,600 gets stored as fat. And then you go back to your 1,000, and then you store, little bits of that, but then you jump up again to a higher calorie day and you store all of that as fat. So gradually over time, that, those few binge days that you have, which aren't very many because you're doing really great, but those few binge days really, really play on you. And it messes with your mindset so hard.
And that's really why the balanced, sustainable lifestyle is what we talk about, right? Christina, back when we first even met each other and started this business together, it was like, the way you lose your weight is the way you maintain your weight. So if you're losing your weight, and yes, people have lost weight on 800 calories, they really have, in their honeymoon period, probably while the metabolism was still working. If you go too much into the wrong zones of that, you're going to be struggling. And if I told you you would never, ever allowed to have a piece of cake again, and I told you you're never, ever allowed to have a piece of bread again, chances are you're going to either be like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Or two, you're probably going to be like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm going to have it. And then that's where the binge, if we call it, is going to happen. You're going to pull that
you lie to yourself. You lie to yourself, because when you're getting really great results, and guys, I've been there. When you're getting really great results, you're super motivated, and you're like, yeah, I don't need bread again, Lindsay. Like, screw you and your bread. That, you can totally think that. But then you're 5 years out from surgery, and bread like starts dancing in your dreams, and you're like, oh my gosh. And you don't even care if it makes you vomit. You're still going to eat it occasionally. And you just do it. And that's what happens in real life, guys, that you're not ever going to say, I'm never going to eat this food again. Even people that have like food intolerance and like I said, vomit from certain things, we still occasionally eat the wrong things because we just don't have ironclad willpower for the rest of our lives. Nobody does. And I mean, nobody, maybe there's like 2 people in the whole world that can do it, but it's just so few. I know, because I have a dairy intolerance and I still eat cheese occasionally because cheese is freaking delicious. So to say I'm never going to eat it again in my life is a lie. Even though it causes me physical pain, I still do it once in a while, because we just don't have that ironclad willpower.
No, and we all know it, right? I mean, everybody has something, whether it's wheat, whether it's cheese, whether it's, like, for me, I have lots of things that cause my stomach issues, and even then I'm just like, it's fine. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But because that's what we are. We're human. That's okay. That's how it works. But that's the thing, like, we constantly say to people, right? We also want these people who are going to turn around and say, everything has to be deleted from your diet. Everything you can't have that's bad, right? Which is what you see in the bariatric communities. You see different groups that are like, no bread, no cheese, no this, no that, no that, no that, no that. And I'm just like, oh wow. And a few weeks ago, I posted what was like the bariatric kind of guidelines to follow. Now, that was right after surgery. But imagine getting that now and looking at it, and I, as a person, am like, who can do that? Because I know I can't do that. I know Christina can't do that. And like almost everybody in our community at some point is going to break from that. But what happens, what we do is we create this idea of, it's a little bit more of fruits and vegetables, a little bit less of this. We're never going to turn around and say, you're never allowed to have this, you're never allowed to have that. Because, well, one, it would be hypocritical because we all both have those things once in a while. But two, it's not sustainable. And that's the idea. Balanced, sustainable lifestyle is what we want. Because if you're 30 years old, you have a shit ton of life still to live. If you're 70 years old, you still have a shit. Do you really want to live in a place where you just can't eat anything ever?
And I remember a big reason for my surgery was that I wanted to show my daughter specifically, my son too, but my daughter specifically, what healthy living looked like. I didn't want her to grow up seeing me on a diet all the time. I didn't want her to grow up having bad body image issues and all of that stuff. So that was something that was a big deal to me. It's part of what's driven my journey. And I remember that she was 3, either 2 or 3. I think she was turning 3. And I wasn't quite to my goal yet. And it was her birthday. And that she was like so upset at me that I wasn't eating a cupcake on her birthday, that she was like, Mommy, it's my birthday. Like, you need to eat this. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not modeling healthy for her right now by not consuming this. That healthy is that's okay to have a cupcake because it's your freaking birthday. That, that it just, there had to be some balance in there. And that was when it was really like, foot on the gas all the time, all out. And it just, even if you can do it because you have the physical willpower for it, it's not what healthy looks like. Healthy looks like balance. Healthy looks like sustainable. Healthy looks like that you can say no sometimes, but it's okay to say yes occasionally too. And figuring out what that balance looks like, because all or nothing is not balance. All or nothing is not healthy, and all or nothing is not sustainable. So, and all or nothing is not going to work in this honeymoon phase, and we all are beyond this honeymoon phase, and we all know that because that's why we're here. If, again, like Lindsay said earlier, if you guys were getting, and if we were, perfect in getting the ultimate success all the time, none of us would need a support group. None of us would be here listening. So that is the debunking the honeymoon, is that it's never going to be perfect, but you need to be able to figure out what that balance looks like and then live it forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, if you don't know, we do these coffee chats every Monday, and then an email comes out on Thursday, and our blog post goes out on Saturday. And so the blog post that went out just this past Saturday was about the starvation experience we talked about last week, a little bit about what that meant for people who were in that mindset and how it was in the long term. Take a read, like go educate yourself on that information, because we hear a lot of people saying, well, I don't know why I was eating 800 calories. That's just what they told me to do. And that's really where we're like, no, you got to advocate for yourself. And again, a few months ago on our business page, we actually did a whole coffee chat on advocating for yourself, because the truth is it's not sustainable. There's no long-term success in that. And if anything, there is long-term negative side effects to that. And that's really where like the Minnesota starvation experiment came from, was there's so many long-term negative side effects, and nobody wants to be in a place where they are negatively thinking and impacting their life around them, whether you have kids, whether you don't have kids, because you're human and that's just the way it is. So definitely think about that. Remember, no matter what you are, where you are in your journey, I don't care if you're stalled, I don't care if you've been struggling, I don't care if you gained a ton of weight because of COVID, we are telling you that the next step for you is not a liquid reset. It's not, starving yourself for the next 3 days. It's actually focusing on getting yourself an accountability buddy, maybe grabbing that toolkit, coming and joining the community so you have the people so that you are able to then move forward and start or restart or re-gauge or refocus or whatever word you want to use for you back into your journey beyond the honeymoon.
Perfect. All right, guys, we will see you again next Monday with a whole new topic. And we can't wait. If you have any questions, feel free to jump in the comments. Lindsay and I'll come back and answer them. So enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Bye.